Okay, I have come across a editorial Long Live Mahatma Macaulay. Let's read it. Chandra, Bhan Prasad and Ashish Gautam. Okay. With the onslaught on Macaulay mindset, the vilification of Lord Macaulay has returned. He is by implication called a cultural enslaver. His admirers are derided as Macaulay Putra for having internalized inferiority. The mindset theorem suggests that English educated Indians are traitors and, and an imagined civilizational essence, yet few critics have read the primary text that grounds this outrage. Macaulay Minute on Indian Education 1835. Selective quotations over 2 centuries have ensured that these arguments are understood only through subterfuge. In 1813, the British Parliament ordered the East India Company to spend at least rupees 1 lakh annually for the revival and promotion of literature and the encouragement of the learned natives of the India and for the introduction and promotion of a knowledge of the science among the inhabitants of the British territories. This mandate split British officials. Orientalists argued in favor of Sanskrit and Arabic education. Anglistic, led by Macaulay, argued that funds must support education aligned with economic modernity, imperial science, and universal knowledge. This debate has been reduced to a language issue. Macaulay demonstrated using accounts from Calcutta that Sanskrit and Arabic colleges required stipends to attract students, while English schools drew fee-paying students voluntarily. His arguments was based on economic viability and intellectual returns. The distortion was led by NCERT books, which claimed Macaulay sought to create a class of person Indian in blood and color but English in tastes, in opinion, in morals, and in intellect. Bipin Chandra used this quote as a proof of cultural subservience. Sumit Sarkar repeated it. Students were never shown the full paragraph that reads, "We must present do our best to form a class who may be interpreters between us and the millions who we govern. A class person a class of persons, Indian in blood and color, but English in tastes, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect. To that class, we may leave it to refine the vernacular dialects of the country, to enrich those dialects with terms of science borrowed from the Western nomenclature, and to render them by degrees fit vehicles for conveying knowledge to the great mass of the population. This sleight of hands and is reminiscent of the Aswathama episode. Lord Krishna instruct Yudhishthira to declare Aswathama is dead. Yudhishthira does so, muttering, "The elephant." Understand, under his breath, the visible and concealed truth coexist. Mythology often treats such misdirection as a divine sanction when the cause is deemed righteous. The second quote routinely weaponized against Macaulay is, "A single shelf of good European library was worth the whole native literature of India and Arabia." Yet the same minute contains a line, "A country once superior in knowledge to the nations of Europe, referring to Egypt, which had declined. He notes that He notes that the West was in a state of as barbarous as that in which our ancestors were before the Crusades. He observed that almost everything that was worth reading was contained in the writings of the ancient Greek and Romans, and he lists Thucydides, Plato, Cicero, and Tacitus as intellectual superiors. He famously argues the languages of Western Europe civilized Russia. I cannot doubt that they will do for Hindu what they have done for the Tatars. That was not a claim of racial hierarchy. It was a resentment about how languages that carry modern science and philosophical knowledge transform societies. Macaulay reinforced this point in his July 10, 1833 House of Commons speech. He described caste as a system that pronounced some men to be by birth the lords of the soil and others to be by birth hewers of woods and drawers of waters. He mocked the idea that a nation could advance while the highest honors of the state were reserved reversed for a favored caste. The outrage against Macaulay is not solely rooted in colonial injury, but also in his attack on caste codes. That's the reason. I love scholar D. Sam Babu coinage of Mahatma Macaulay. It recognizes that English disrupted caste-based social hierarchies. It reassigns the moral authority of the figure who initiated the first structural breach in caste's history. English didn't merely replace Sanskrit, it diluted caste. Sanskrit preserved hierarchy. English entered India without ritual barriers. It opened access to science, law, administration, and global immigration. What caste society refused Dalits, English offered. English offered. Sanskrit pretends to defend authenticity while smuggling caste codes back into public discourse. The Aswathama analogy completes the picture. Deception is legitimized for dharmic urgency. Only a Mahatma like Macaulay can imagine Punjab better than England of his grandfathers. Aswathama is dead. Long live Mahatma Macaulay. Prasad is affiliated scholar. Okay.